What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the video. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today I am driving the 2025 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, and this is the Woodland Edition. This is basically the off-road trim level that Toyota offers for the RAV4. Toyota has sent me this RAV4 Woodland for this review. I've been driving it a lot the last couple days, so here are my thoughts on it. First, let's talk about the ride quality. There's kind of a lot going on here. This Woodland Edition gets a TRD tuned off-road suspension. We get struts up in the front, multi-link in the rear, and both have stabilizer bars. And the shocks, the springs, and the bump stops are all different from the regular RAV4. This trim level also gets all-terrain tires. And even though the sidewalls are stiffer than traditional tires, the fact that it's riding on 18-inch wheels does make it a bit more forgiving and makes for a smoother ride. Now, in fairness, I haven't driven any other trim levels of the RAV4, so I can't really make a comparison to the other trim levels, but this is a pretty smooth ride considering what we have here. Today is like a slightly warmer day. It is 46 degrees here in New Jersey. Lately, it's been a lot colder, but the shocks do tend to stiffen up in colder weather. Now, since today's a normal day, I do notice a difference. The suspension is a little bit more forgiving today in comparison to, days when it was like in the low 20s. But I'd say the difference is negligible. You're not really gonna notice it unless you're really looking for it. But back to the tires, even though they're stiffer, they're not loud. So the tires themselves don't really generate much noise, but wind, engine, the other factors, well, that's a different story. In normal city driving on side roads like this one, it doesn't get overly noisy, especially when the car is in EV mode, but at higher speeds, you will notice quite a bit more noise. Next, I want to talk about the fuel economy because I have to say I was quite surprised by how good it is. So this is rated at 37 miles per gallon combined. That's 38 city and 35 on the highway. With this being a hybrid, the most important factor to determine how good your fuel economy is going to be is this right here in the gauge cluster, the EV driving ratio. Now over here on the console, there is an EV mode button. So you can get some range from putting it in EV mode, but the system is very efficient in how it switches on and off between the battery and the engine. Now here in city driving, it has primarily been in EV driving mode. I've been driving for 16 minutes, 56% of that was on the battery. It also does a really good job at recharging the battery through the regenerative braking. And this power gauge here on the left side helps you keep an eye on that. And just little things like gently applying pressure on the brake while you're coasting downhill helps recharge that battery and get more miles out of it. So the last few days I've been driving all over, combination of city and highway driving, but it's just so surprising that in an all-wheel drive SUV, after all that driving, I've only used not even a quarter of a tank of gas. It's not quite down to 3/4 yet, but I mean, that's incredible. The estimated fuel economy that they give, it isn't really all that accurate because there's so many different variable factors that determine how good your fuel economy is going to be. And this doesn't have a super large gas tank either. It's only 14.5 gallons. All right, let's talk about the powertrain. This is a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine paired with 3 different electric motors. And while this does have all-wheel drive, it's not one cohesive all-wheel drive system. The motor back in the rear powers the rear wheels, and that's independently from the power to the front wheels. Combined, this puts out 219 horsepower and 252 pound-feet of torque. And that is paired with an eCVT, and I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but that certainly helps contribute to this really good fuel economy. 0 to 60 is rated at 7.3 seconds. All right, we're gonna test the acceleration. I have it in sport mode. Gonna come to a complete stop. Really good low-end torque there. It's not the fastest, but it's not the slowest either. I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a Toyota RAV4. And even on hard acceleration from a stop, I mean, that switch from the battery to engine is just so smooth, so seamless. So out here on the highway, the engine primarily takes over, especially during acceleration. I just wish there was a tachometer. There isn't. There's only this power gauge for the hybrid system. I would like to know where the RPM range is when kind of just coasting, but unfortunately it's not there. Now out here on the highway, there is quite a bit of road noise. There's plenty of wind noise coming from, the edges of the windows, but also all the cars around me, you can hear very well. This could definitely benefit from some more sound deadening materials, some more insulation. Now pick up on the highway. Once you're already going and you need to speed up, there's no lag in power delivery. It's actually quite smooth and quite efficient. Alright, next we're going to test out the adaptive cruise control. First we want to make sure lane keep assist is on, and then this button right here sets your radar cruise control. So it's on now, and now I hit set to set the speed. As you can see, I'm drifting quite a bit here in my lane. During my use of this system over the last several days, I have determined that you do indeed need to steer the car yourself. The lane keep assist does not do a good job at keeping you in your lane. It doesn't keep the car centered. It has you going back and forth. Basically, it only kicks in once you're right at the edge of the lane. It does not keep the car centered. So if you were looking for a car to be semi-autonomous that you wouldn't have to steer while you have the adaptive cruise control on, this isn't the one. I'm sorry to say, it's not the one. Now that's definitely a bummer, but the system does do a good job at maintaining the distance between you and the car in front of you. It also does a great job at smoothly braking and accelerating on its own. So this car's coming in front of me. It's very smoothly slowing down to keep that distance that was set, even more so right there. It is a little bit slow to start accelerating again, I will say. Okay, it's braking. It does a phenomenal job at braking, I will give it that. This Woodland Edition RAV4 has a 6-speaker audio system, so let's take a listen. Now, even though this is the base audio system, it's only 6 speakers, this does not have the JBL that's available in the higher trim levels. It's actually pretty good. It handles high volumes pretty well, especially like in the low frequency range. The loud bass doesn't really make anything rattle. The clarity isn't exactly crystal clear, but I mean, from a system like this, more than adequate. Alright, now let's talk about the steering and handling. Between the different drive modes, when you put it in sport, it does tighten up a bit. This is the weight that I like to have it at. I wish it was like that more for eco and normal, but it is a lot lighter on those drive modes. But regardless of my personal opinion, it's still nice and direct and precise. Now, when going into these corners, you can feel the stiffness on the sidewalls of the tire, and I think that makes for pretty good traction. All-wheel drive system does a good job of keeping everything nice and firm and planted. And even though this is an SUV, very minimal body roll. When you have it in eco or normal mode, the steering's a little bit slower to respond. Now I have it in sport, responds much quicker. Also, braking. That was in eco, let's try in sport now. Okay, I don't really notice any difference in the braking between the different drive modes, but one thing I will say about the brakes is that I do have to press it harder than like what I'm used to on other cars. It's just an adjustment, but they still work very well. So that's going to wrap up this test drive of the 2025 Toyota RAV4 Woodland Edition. I hope you found this review insightful. Big thank you again to Toyota for sending me this RAV4. Let me know your thoughts of the Woodland Edition down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend and subscribe. It'll really help the channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. Let me know down in the comments what other vehicles you want to see on the channel next. And be sure to follow @Optical Automotive on TikTok and Instagram, and check out the page on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.